Hi, this is Little Dwarf playing games while rambling incoherently into a microphone. Why? Well, just because I can. And they continue with Werewolf the Apocalypse, Heart of the Forest. Blind? I'm in a pretty crappy situation. I've killed Anya during my first change. I've kind of botched the whole protest approach because nobody likes me, and now I've changed into a Krinas out of rage, smashed my apartment, and the police is chasing me. So I feel like this is going to end badly, but I have to choose a plan. They expect me to act like a philodox, and I feel like I will, just because that is my auspice. And the descriptions are pretty vague anyway. Philodox, justice, retribution. Galliard, stories, propaganda. Theurge, spirits and rituals. I guess those would be those are left for Arun and Ragabash, because there are five auspices. But given my particular, character sheet, I'm only able to choose between those three, and I feel I will lean into the Philodox at least. Although I'm not that great of a Philodox to begin with, I feel like, because I've been pretty crappy at managing this whole process situation peacefully. But let's go to the barrows. With Olga's Pack's local connections and Colonel Pack's technological wizardry, we followed the money and found out who was paying the loggers and the security guards. Behind all of the ideology and politics, it was all just business. We had to stop the money flowing. They were cutting down trees because somebody was paying them to do it. We decided to stop the money flowing. Finally, we were ready. After a few days of stakeouts and preparations, we identified our target and were ready to move. We started with a kidnapping. We let him out in the middle of a forest. I let Cornell take the lead. I don't think he liked that. Though I don't remember what his disposition was before. Cornell yanked the bag off the man's face and lifted a flashlight and shined it in his eyes so he couldn't see us. The man reeked of fear and too much aftershave. I knew him apparently. Yeah, Bartek's father, right? I knew him, and it was going to be a problem, because the man behind the logging industry was Bartek's father. Like father, like son. He was abusive scum and has already molded his son in his image. The man whimpered and shielded his eyes. It was time to deliver my message. I wonder if... being blunt is a euphemism for beating him up, or is it simply being blunt in my words? I'm not sure. I have only one willpower point though. I explained to him how things were. Here's the deal. You stopped the logging, I explained as clearly as I could. And in return, you and your family can enjoy a safe future, one without strange accidents, fires and misfortunes. He almost shat his pants. I could smell it. But he decided to play the tough guy. "Fuck off, you bitch," he yelled. "I'm going to make your life a fucking misery. Just you wait. I know the chief of police, I know MPs. You won't get away with this. Who do you think you are? Oh, I'll show you who I am, I said quietly. I felt Colonel tense by my side, but he said nothing. He said nothing, just watched. I don't think changing is a good idea, because first of all, it's breaking the veil, and second of all, if I change to Krynos, I'm probably going to kill him, or at least he's going to forget everything, which isn't going to accomplish anything. I took a deep breath. Oh, okay. So that literally did nothing. Great. I took a deep breath and focused. I guess if I had to change into anything... But the thing is, Krynos doesn't really break the veil, because the delirium will make him forget. But it also feels to me like it's going to accomplish nothing, specifically because of that. Like, he's going to forget this whole encounter, so even if I tell him as a Krynos to, stop with the logging, it's not going to do anything. But if I change it to Glabro, I'm going to break the veil, which is clearly not something I'm supposed to do, but I'm pretty crap at being a werewolf anyway, so... And I guess, that's an interesting point though. I guess nobody has told me directly that I'm supposed to not break the veil. Like, they told me about the veil existing, and that most humans don't believe that werewolves exist, but they didn't outright tell me that it's part of Garou law, that I'm not supposed to break the veil. Let's do it. My muscles spasmed and rearranged themselves. My jaw cracked and my mouth filled with blood. I clenched my fists and claws drove into my palms. Panting and whimpering, I changed. I was more than human, wolfish, strong and scary. I know who you are, I growled in a deep, inhuman voice. You're a small, sad, fat little man who's only good at owing money and being despised by his own wife. I could smell his fear. It's not going to work because I have 0 willpower. I'm pretty worthless, to be honest. I know where you live, I growled. I know when you sleep and I know when you wake up. We're watching your every move. He looked me in the eyes, transfixed, like a deer caught in the headlights. His lower lip started to tremble. That was just the beginning. Run, I kicked him. I said run. The night was still young. I hunted him for hours, confident that I would easily find the man, no matter what trick he tried. But I lost him. Yeah, because I suck. Like, literally I've done nothing right this entire game. But he knew the forest well. He dodged, he turned. Before I could get my bearing, he was gone. I stood there panting. Colonel came to my side. Shit, he said. The sky was getting brighter. The forest was waking up. I couldn't sleep that night. Punishing the local lobbyist was supposed to be my rite of passage, and I failed. What would be the consequences? I didn't know, and that scared me. We met soon after the sunrise. On the same clearing when I woke for the first time as a Garou. Lisa looked at all of us inside. Our patrons were looking at her expectantly, and she stepped toward the center of the clearing. I am the Theurge of the Sept, and I'm here to make sure we do things the right way. I held my breath. She turned to me and I held my breath. Maia, come forth. Are you a cub who seeks recognition as an adult? I answered. I am, I answered solemnly. Are you an applicant to a tribe? Lisa asked again. I confirmed. I am. Who speaks for the cub? Lisa looked at her septmates. I do. I am blind prophet of the children of Gaia, philodox of the Winter Weasel Pack. I observed the cub on her mission, and I'm here to tell the story. Do I have to take a new name? Yeah, I'm probably going to have a name that signifies that I suck, because I do. Like, literally, I've done nothing this entire game that was a success. It's actually kind of mind-boggling how much did I suck in my approach to this game. I've done nothing that's successful. Literally nothing. I wonder how will it end. Will they kill me? Like, I don't think so. They can't afford that. But will they, I don't know, exile me to another sept because I'm too much of a sucker? Anyway, I guess they all had secret werewolf names. It made sense. A new life demanded a new name. Would I also have to take a new name? As the cub passed her challenge? Asked Lisa. No, I didn't. I sagged, knowing that I failed. She has failed. Was the inevitable answer, but the challenge was hard and she fought bravely. Did I? I didn't fight at all. I'm a loser. Like, I am literally the worst werewolf that has ever walked the earth or something. Like, I've accomplished nothing. Nothing at all. I wondered what would happen next. So, what now? Should I pack my things and go home, or what? We should have spent more time teaching the cub and test her when she was ready. Lisa gave Olga her "I told you so" look. There was no time, Olga snapped. I waited in silence. There were so many things I wanted to say, but I bit my tongue and stayed quiet. I'll vouch for her. Cornell put his hand on my arm. The challenge was unfair, and she did well for a cub. I didn't. I literally didn't. Like, I've accomplished nothing. If I accomplished at least one thing correctly, like if I done one thing correctly throughout this entire game, maybe I could have been forgiven. Like, sure, I'm quite new at this, but I've failed at everything I've touched. I waited. So be it, but if anything goes wrong, the cub is your responsibility. Have you chosen your name? Lisa turned to me. My new secret name. Suddenly I remembered my grandfather talking about his old friends. He never used the real name. They were always Thunder or Grey or Needle. I always thought it was a guerrilla thing, some kind of war name. Now I wasn't so sure anymore. How to capture my whole life, my aspirations, my personality and my heritage in one name? I cleared my throat. Okay, I feel like Mist is a good name because it's a homophone with the word missed, as in I missed every one of my goals. I missed every chance to prove my worth. So I feel like it has some kind of interesting double meaning, although I doubt the game means that in that case, but sure, Mist, a name with more than one meaning. My name is Mist, I answered, thinking of fog and one of the Valkyries from the Norse legends. As for the tribe, choosing the tribe was another matter. Now, I personally like Children of Gaia the most, because they strike me as the most reasonable of the werewolves. Because some of them, well, most of them are pretty murderers. And I feel like Children of Gaia are on the right track with their diplomacy approach. To be honest, it doesn't matter because I suck. Like, I personally, as a person in this game, suck. It doesn't matter which tribe do I belong to. They gain no value from having me as a member because I'm worthless. But if I personally, as a player, if I were to choose a tribe, I would choose Children of Gaia, like 9 times out of 10. So I want to be a Children of Gaia. After getting to know both Olga and Cornel better, I decided to join Children of Gaia. Cornel agreed to mentor me. Only one thing remained to the ceremony, and to end the ceremony and make me a full-fledged Garou, I had to join a pack. I am going to join Cornel's pack, obviously, because the Morning Wolf matter seems to be a pretty aggressive totem, and obviously Cornel is already my mentor, so I chose the Winter Weasels. I joined Cornel's pack and chose the Winter Weasel as my patron, and so it was done. According to the ancient rites, Lisa painted the mystical glyph of my tribe on my sternum. It disappeared after a moment, but whenever I closed my eyes, I could feel its warm touch between my breasts. Mist of the Children of Gaia, a philodox of the Winter Weasel pack. Welcome to our sept, she said solemnly, and then she howled. Howls rose towards the sky. They sang about ancient laws, of war, status and secrecy. I remembered only a few. Combat the worm whenever it dwells and whenever it breeds. Submit to those of higher station. Respect those beneath you. The veil shall not be lifted. I joined the song. I threw my head back and howled with my sept. I was a cub no more. I was ready to tell my own stories, to earn my own place in the pack, to howl my own songs. Chapter 6. The Storm. Yeah, this is going to end in blood. There is no... I've failed at everything. Everything that I could do, I failed. So there is no other way. We have to kill them. Like, this is what's going to happen. And I don't feel good about it at all. Dust to dust. It was one of those blistering summer days when the asphalts melt, the grass withers and the air smothers those brave enough to step outside. Despite the heat, it felt like the whole village was at the funeral. It was moving. I stood there, surrounded by people weeping over their loss, looking at the rosaries they clutched in their fists. Something tightened in my chest. For a brief, chilling moment, I thought I saw Anya's face among the crowd, but no, I buried her in the barrows myself, and nobody there even knew that she was dead. It was someone else's funeral. Anya was not the reason we had gathered in the churchyard. The body was of a hunter had been found in the forest. The circumstances of their death were unclear. It was our doing. My doing, and the death has tipped the scales. Did they die because they deserved it, or did they happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, in the company of someone who couldn't hold their temper? Was that justice, or yet another sin demanding to be avenged? I could feel the tension seething around me. The death, this funeral, has pushed the community, already weary and frightened by the recent disappearance of an activist in the forest, to the edge. The world was watching. The press has swarmed to the funeral like flies. They were reporting on the illegal logging and how it was a danger to both the ecosystem and the human lives. The police has cordoned off the funeral, and they were aggressively searching and detaining any activist they noticed, it had become political. Suddenly, Puszcza Białowieska had become politically charged and the hottest place to be in Poland. And it was not only local politicians and activists from both sides who'd cut off the wind of the commotion. The Minister of Environment himself had driven to Białowieża to attend the funeral. He was standing next to the priest conducting the ceremony, surrounded by the police and what looked like a handful of bodyguards. The coffin went down and the crowd stirred, everyone lining up to throw a handful of dust on the coffin or put flowers on the grave. I found myself face to face with Bartek. I got swept by the crowd and find myself face to face with Bartek. There should be another coffin here because we both know she's dead. He looked me in the eyes. I really liked Anya, you know? I froze. It has something to do with you. And I will find out what. I don't want to waste willpower on that. What is the saying? I'm not sure if it's also a saying in English, but in Polish we have a proverb, something along the lines of only the guilty explain themselves, so I'm going to just say nothing. I didn't know what to say. Bartek looked me in the eyes. Funny thing, it's like all the strange things started happening as soon as you came here. I looked over his shoulder. It was clear that many people felt the same way he did. And the minister knew how to use that sentiment. I listened in disbelief. I watched in disbelief as the priest handed him the mic. He wasn't someone you'd call a good speaker. He repeated the same platitudes, but it was clear he'd only come here to show his face and tighten the leash on the local logging companies. The crowd listened, silent. Yeah, this is my fault. Like, I literally suck. He's trying to escalate. I realized that the conflict was only going to escalate. He was determined to push on with the logging. Our plans to cut the local funding had backfired, and the locals might turn on us any second. We were ready to defend ourselves. Are we though? Like, this is going to end in a bloodbath, and I hate it, but it's all my fault. Like, I have no one to blame but me, and how much I suck. Like, I'm the worst werewolf that has ever lived. The last stand. It was high noon. The sun was at its most merciless, and the world was almost white with heat. The air smelled of herbs and bark and tree sap. Insects buzzed lazily in the high grass, stunned by the summer sun. I guess I can make one final attempt at bringing this down peacefully, but it's not going to work. Like, who am I even kidding? We were setting up the protest. The day was stifling as we set up the protest. The whole clearing was decorated with banners, and we had our placards. The banners we'd hung on the National Park headquarters the last week was just a warm-up. Wood is the enemy of the forest was our main slogan, but there were many more. Conveying my anger is only going to embolden them, so what does it mean, something constructive? That's awfully broad, but sure, let's try it. I wrote something constructive. That's not great. That's that's pretty shit as far as inspirational posters go, because make the whole Puszcza National Park demanded my sign is pointless. It's not going to do anything, and I don't really feel like it's a viable solution to anything. nobody's going to care. Like, I was thinking about something witty, maybe, something that's it's interesting, it catches your eye, it makes you think. This is pointless. This is pointless, and it fits perfectly with this whole run, because my Maia is inept. Like, she's literally socially inept, and she fails at everything she does. So I guess it is a viable solution, whatever. I don't think it is. It is a viable solution, I thought. The whole puszcza would be protected and people could still earn money on tourists. There weren't many of us, but everyone in the clearing knew why they were there. The puszcza didn't care. Yeah, even the puszcza doesn't like me anymore. Yeah, this is a shit show. The puszcza didn't care. Compared to her, we were like mayflies. 1 second there, a second later gone, but her fate was in our hands, and we could, second after second, save or destroy the primordial forest. I thought about my family. For centuries, my family has served the puszcza, protecting her and hunting down her enemies, and now I was the last of the Garou of my lineage. What legacy did I want to leave behind? The pressure was almost palpable, and the tempers were flaring. This is going to end in a bloodbath, and I hate it. I looked at my pack. Should we run over the plan again? Cornel asked, looking at my pack. I'll keep jamming their communication, nodded Pat, and we'll coordinate the protesters, added Cornel. I glanced at the other pack. The wolf mother and their cubs were in their positions. Guarding the forest and the perimeter of the camp as agreed. That left the cubs to me. I'm pretty sure it is too late to negotiate, but sure, let's try and fail, as I did with everything else. I think we should keep talking. It's not too late for a peaceful solution. It's always worth trying, Cornel agreed. The cops were gathering, but they don't like me, which it's not going to work, yeah. In increasing numbers, I noticed some SWAT teams joining them. Something was up. It was apparent that they were waiting for something. Then it reached the boiling point. It reached boiling point when the minister arrived for a photo op. We could use that if we somehow use the if we deliver something poignant into the cameras, or if the police attack us first and it gets caught on the camera, then maybe it can be used for something. I took it as a good sign. We could use his presence to our advantage in more ways than one. I calmed down slightly. Oh, frig. I have zero rage. I'm worthless. I knew he was in for a nasty surprise. The reporters closed in on him, shouting uncomfortable questions about the legality of the logging and his forestry policing. In hindsight, you could argue what happened next set a chain of events in motion that had life-changing consequences for many. What? What does it even matter what I choose? Like, at the moment I didn't know that. The change didn't happen just like that. It all started earlier. What does it matter? What's the difference? None of those are actions? And I don't really understand. Okay, it all started earlier. It all started centuries earlier when the first wolf cubs were stolen and the mourning wolf mother asked my foremothers to help. Everything that happened next, the burning villages, my grandfather escaping to America, my mother running away from my father, my return to Białowieża, was a direct consequence. The members of my sept had already moved to their positions, and I also had my part to play. And simply asking him to stop is going to be pointless. It has to be a negotiation of some sort. I feel like this is kind of a position of resignation almost, because I have zero rage, because I suck. And if I spend the last point, I'm not going to have enough for another attempt at negotiating, so I feel like that's pointless as well, but sure, let's try it and fail. Connor grabbed me by the elbow. "Let's go," he hissed in my ear. "We might be able to talk to him." We pressed through the swarm of journalists. I smiled and apologized. We smiled and shook hands and apologized as we pushed through the crowd. It gave me a moment to think. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to say anything because I have zero... This is pointless. I have zero everything. Like, the best I could do in this circumstance is get shot by the police and for it to be caught on camera or something. At least I have health aplenty. I found the sweaty smell strangely comforting, but when we get closer to the minister, it became different, almost pronounced. There was an acrid tang hanging around him like a mist. I caught his gaze. The minister looked at us and Cornell opened his mouth. "Get them out of here." The minister snarled and turned his back to us. Yeah, this accomplished nothing. I shook my head and laughed bitterly. What was I expecting? That this worm feeder would listen to us? Cornell touched my shoulder. "We'll find another way. This is going to end in a bloodbath. I already know that." Went back to regroup. The activists, humans and werewolves alike, listened to it as we told them what happened. The atmosphere was tense. We started our preparations. We prepared ourselves for a worst-case scenario. Okay, let's move. You know what to do, and they did. There was a lot of laughter and friendly pushing, chains clinking, and some people darted up to the trees to seat themselves in the branches. I was assigned to the human chain. I helped to form the human chain. "Hey," I heard, "get those arms behind you." "That's it, attaboy." It hurts, moaned a man's voice. "The next time, do some yoga beforehand, huh? That's it, people, open your hearts so you can fold your wrists behind your backs." I locked my wrists. I tethered my arms through the arms of the people to my left and right and then grabbed my wrists behind my back. It was tight on my shoulders, hot and very sweaty. Then we waited. We sat down, one long human chain, and watched the police and the loggers as they approached. And then they stopped. The sun shone and it was calm, almost serene. It worked. No, it didn't. I don't believe that. I'm pretty sure the morning Wolf Mother's pack is going to do something stupid and they are going to attack. This is going to end badly. I know that. Like, I'm convinced of that. The talk started there and then. I could see the minister was an apt politician and that he could smell a deal for himself in all that, but I didn't really care. We've gotten what we wanted. We started to talk. But I have zero willpower, so I'm not going to be able to accomplish anything. When the talk started, we weren't alone. Luckily, our failed attempt to manipulate events from behind the scenes hadn't ruined our chances. There had been some consequences, but we managed to work around them. So we started talking, and it became big. I don't know what tipped the scales in the end. The press, the international attention, the local interest coming together, our passion, the talks weren't easy. Finally, an agreement was within our reach, but the talks weren't easy. The state forests, the woodworkers, the local populations, ecologists, scientists, activists, everyone wanted something. I was by no means an expert, but I wanted to play my part in the proceedings. I made sure the talks were fair, although I'm not sure how will I be able to do that with zero willpower, but still, let's try. So I decided to observe the talks and make sure that everything was okay. Both sides could use someone unbiased with an analytical approach. The talks went on and on. Of course, I had my opinions. Everyone on the scene had their own opinion and their own point of view, and I had mine. Let's take the bark beetle. In the middle of it, of course, was the spruce bark beetle. How could something so small cause such a gigantic uproar? The beetle had always been part of the forest ecosystem, pointed one of the ecologists. But the recent droughts made the spruce more susceptible than ever, the foresters countered. We have to cut down the trees to stop a total disaster. I saw one problem with this approach. And I cannot do anything worthwhile because I have zero willpower. I didn't trust the officials. I didn't trust the word that came from the officials' mouths. The beetle was not a reason, it was an excuse. You fetishized the forest, scoffed one of the officials. People cultivated it for hundreds of years, and it cannot survive without our help. He's right, you want to take the forest from us. A group of locals attacked the activists. You're not from here and you tell us how to live our lives. Getting all mystical about it is not going to work, because that sounds pretty crazy to most people. So, yet they unbalanced the ecosystem. The problem was that the human intervention unbalanced the ecosystem, and that they pushed it further. If they pushed it any further, they'd lose all that made the Puszcza unique. Opinions clashed, tempers flared, but eventually a new constructive idea started to emerge. At least one of them caught my attention. I feel like international observers could help indeed, because if anything would start to happen again, there is a lot more coverage and a lot more expert opinions from different sides, so it's more possible to work out a solution, because there's less chance of bias. If you have a lot of experts, there's a greater chance of covering, the whole subject, as it were. Because making the whole area a national park is good in theory, but I feel like in practice it could change very little, because making it a national park is a legal fiction, right? Nothing changes. Like, sure, it has special status, but it has it now. Like, as the game said, and as it was the case in real life, I don't think it was entirely legal even now. So, because most of it is a national park already, so I feel like the international observers could help. There was a proposition from a committee of international observers, scientists and foresters, to make sure that the logging was targeting the spruce bark beetle problem only. It was a long and hot day, and I rubbed my eyes. I was so tired, I could barely keep them open. My head was spinning, but I kept going. What was a little heat stroke when so much was at stake? The talks continued. Of course, they had to make it dramatic. There were cameras, there were lights, and the negotiations lasted all day long. We reached the first draft of the agreement literally at sunset. I had no doubt. They'd not only. No, wait. I had no doubt. They'd only stopped the logging because they realized there was something in it for them. I felt relief. But at the moment, I just looked at the sky and laughed. I felt overwhelming relief. Maia? I heard a nervous voice calling my name. Turn around. The voice was familiar, so I turned around. It was Bartek. It was Bartek, his face pale, a rivulet of sweat running down his temple. There was a silver cross dangling from the chain around his neck. I know what you are, he said, his voice shaking. It's always run in your family. There was a gun in his hand, its white muzzle pointed my way. This is going to end again. I've foreseen this for like half an hour now. This is going to end in a bloodbath because I have 0 willpower and 0 rage, so I cannot even like do anything. And presumably he's going to shoot somewhere, at me, and shoot and hit one of the processors or one of the police, and it's going to turn into a bloodbath. Like, I can feel it in my bones. We needed to talk. Bartek, I reached out in a conciliatory gesture. Let's talk. He shook his head. Oh, he killed me. It's too late for that, he said and pulled the trigger. The gun roared and I fell back. My chest burned. I couldn't stop the bleeding. As for Anya was the last thing I heard. There was only pain. Epilogue. Pain. I literally died, which is hilarious, but I feel like in a way it's a very fitting conclusion to this long list of failures. I lay there on the ground, my face buried in the grass. Blood was gushing from my wounds, and the more I tried to use my hands to stop the bleeding, the more it seemed to flow. The silver bullet lodged in the wound burned like fire. I coughed blood. I coughed bubbles of blood and air coming from my mouth. Was that it? Was this how it all is going to end? On the grass in an ancient forest in a place I'd never been to, among the people I didn't really know? My thoughts were slow. I remembered we'd come to a conclusion, a fragile armistice, that would stop the logging and save the forest. The forest was safe. For now, there was hope. There was always hope. What had happened to the others? I briefly wondered what had happened to the others, then I closed my eyes. Your story is almost over. This might be a good time to take a look at your character sheet. The grass will heal all wounds. It will cover everything, I thought. No matter how high we piled the bodies, if we let her work, no one will remember the carnage. It will grow over my bones, and my body will become a mound in the forest. This was my legacy. My legacy is failure. There's no other way to say that. Like, I've literally accomplished nothing. And and in the end, I let myself get killed. So that's literally like my whole journey has been pointless. Condition impaired. My grandfather was a forest soldier. I'm afraid he did something terrible. I decided to pay my family's debts and join the logging protests. I managed to stop the logging. Yeah, for a bit, but it seems it's not conclusive in any way. I killed Anya, and I died myself. So, literally, this is ridiculous. I'm ridiculously bad. And this was my legacy. There was a fire, and there was a village, and there was a generation after generation, their bodies littered throughout the forest, covered with grass and ferns. The warriors who have protected the land and died for it. I was the last, and then our story would come to an end. I heard a voice. Come, child. I heard a voice with a warm, wet touch on my cheek. Come. Was it worth it? I rolled on my back and opened my eyes for the last time. The sky above was filled with a gigantic wolf made of stars. She had the moon between her eyes. A tear rolled down my cheek. She licked my face again. Come, she said, and I went. The end. You have finished Heart of the Forest. Cubs gather around the fire and listen to the story of Maia, known among the Garou as Mist of the Children of Gaia, a philodox of the Winter Weasel Pack. Her judgments were wise. Were they really? I somehow doubted. And Maia died fighting for the Puszcza. Remember her in your songs, because her death was not in vain. The Puszcza was safe, at least for a while. The first protest against the logging of the Białowieża forest took place in 1916. The game was loosely inspired by those events. All characters and events depicted in the game are entirely fictitious. Well, so I guess that was Werewolf the Apocalypse, Heart of the Forest. I am perturbed by how little I accomplished and how much I sucked. Like, I've literally done nothing right this entire game. It has been a string of failure after failure after failure after failure, and in the end I literally died. So it's almost like magical in how retarded I am. Like, this game has no gameplay and I still managed to lose. That's somehow impressive, isn't it? Like, this game requires no skill and I still failed. What does it really tell about me? Like, I cannot really even describe how I feel about it, but as far as the game itself is concerned, I feel like in a way it was almost too lenient, because sure, I died at the very end, but I screwed everything up and they still let me join the pack. They made me they made me a member of the tribe and everything. So I've done nothing correct this entire game, nothing. And I feel like it could have had greater repercussions. But besides, it was okay, but it had very little to do with the Umbra and the spirits, and I feel like that's a very great part of being a werewolf in the world of darkness. So that's kind of weird. It almost feels like, you know, a first chapter in a longer string of stories, possibly, you know, an episodic game of some sort, where you advance through the ranks of the Garou. But obviously I'm dead, so I'm not going to advance anywhere. I was literally worthless, and my existence as a werewolf was pointless and pretty short. I kind of liked the drawings, you know, the graphics. They were pretty, you know, evocative and pretty like immersive, because the style was definitely interesting and memorable. But I feel like the story itself wasn't that interesting. A lot more could have been done with the werewolf setting. And again, I feel like this feels like a first chapter of a greater story, but it's supposed to be a complete game. It is what it is. Like, I'm mildly embarrassed about how everything I did was pointless, but I guess that might be unique in its own way, because I wonder how many people on YouTube got such a bad ending, you know, with how many people screwed everything up so badly. So that might be interesting in its own right. I'm not sure if I'm going to replay the game. I'll probably just watch some other Let's Plays. I don't really have time. I have such huge a backlog that I don't really have time to replay it on my own. I'm probably going to watch some other Let's Plays. I'll also link them in the description, just if you want to compare something. If I find any that are fun or interesting, or differ in interesting parts. Yeah, but that was Werewolf the Apocalypse, Heart of the Forest, and that was the tale of Maia, the worst werewolf that has ever lived. So I guess that's all for this one, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!